I'd like to talk to you tonight about prayer and prayerfulness. A Course in Miracles says prayer is the medium of miracles. What does that mean? Well, a miracle is a shift in perception. When we pray about something, we are actually praying that the Holy Spirit, by whatever name you call it, the aspect of the mind of God which enters into the consciousness of humanity with us, that this power actually enter into our mind and shift our thinking. Freud called neurosis separation from self. Living in this world, we live in a state of consciousness having been trained by the mindset dominated by fear, which the Course in Miracles calls the ego mind. And it is a mindset that has trained us to think thoughts that are unnatural. We are taught thoughts, ego thoughts, in such a way that by the time we are very, very young, we are already thinking thoughts that are unnatural, but feeling they are natural. And thoughts that are unnatural feel to us natural. So our mental filter is completely upside down. Free will means I can think whatever I want to think. So when I'm thinking in a way that is completely unnatural, although it feels natural to me, God Himself will not force me back into natural thinking. Now let's be very clear here. Natural thinking is loving thinking. Unnatural thinking is unloving thinking. Love is to fear, the Course in Miracles teaches us, what light is to darkness. So when I'm not thinking with love, when I'm not using my mind, every thought, the Course in Miracles says, every thought is either an extension of love or a projection of fear. So when I'm loving, the Course says we are co-creating with God. We are literally using our minds the way they were intended to be used, the way they were created to be used. That is our purpose on this earth, to think the way God thinks, which means to love. Cause and effect means, as the Course says, every thought you think will create form on some level. So if I think with love, the effects I get back will be loving. If I do not choose, and every moment we choose, the Course says, you are either choosing consciously or you're choosing unconsciously, but you're making a choice in every instant. And in any moment that I'm not choosing, consciously or unconsciously, to extend love, then I am projecting fear, because although I can misuse my mind, and any unloving thought is a misuse of the mind, even though I am free will, to misuse my mind, I am not free to diminish its power. So every thought I think will either be powerful in its ability to create forms that express love, or every thought I think will manifest some form that has to do with fear. We all know negative thoughts, negative feelings. It could be anger, it could be attack, it could be defense. The Course in Miracles is usually a kind of says that the ego is pretty much of a seesaw. I'm attacking, I'm defending, I'm attacking, I'm defending. I'm better than you, no, actually I'm worse than you. But it always has to do with feeling separate from you. So the ego mind is the thought that is a thought I am thinking separate from the mind of God, and because I am separate in my thinking from the mind of God, I will then experience myself as separate from you. Because God is the primary relationship. As long as I'm aligned in my thinking with the thinking of God, I have a pretty good shot of being aligned with you. Whenever I am separated from the thinking of God, I'm going to end up actually fostering and maintaining and increasing my experience of separation from you. The ego mind uses the senses of the body, because the ego is the belief that you are a body. The Course in Miracles says enlightenment is a shift in self-identification from body identification to spirit identification. The spirit says you're not a body, your body is a suit of clothes. You were here before you were born, you'll be here after you die. The suit of clothes is just a container, and there's time and space themselves are simply an illusion of consciousness. There's no place where another person stops and you start. But that thinking is completely upside down from the thinking of the world. The thinking of the world tells me I am my body, you are your body. I see what you look like with my physical eyes. I hear what you said with my physical ears. That is particularly problematic because you are probably not perfect, and neither am I. So my ego mind will find all different ways to judge what I see in you or what I hear from you. And that is what heaven and hell are. Heaven is an awareness of our oneness. The Course says it's not a condition or a place. It's an awareness of our oneness. And hell is what the ego mind would make of any given moment. Because there is no greater hell than feeling that I'm separate from you. And yet the ego mind would have me thinking the thoughts that only increase and foster the separation. Prayer is the reweaving. Prayer is the medium of miracles, in that it is the way to get back to my true self in the moment when I am lost in the illusion of separation. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's as simple as, oh, lighten up. Sometimes it's as easy as, oh, come on, look at the glass half empty. Oh, come on, be a little merciful. Have some compassion, have some forgiveness. In those cases, it's easy. You don't really need a miracle to get yourself back on track and right alignment. Other times, it's not so easy. You have hit every button, you have triggered me, you remind me of my mother, or you remind me of my father, and I don't care what the Course in Miracles says, you said that you would call. I don't care what the Course in Miracles says, this is unforgivable, I have boundaries, I have reasons, I have standards, and you're off and running. You are insane. We've all been there. We've all been there. And then what the Course in Miracles is asking you to know, and this is achievable, to just know you're insane. Just know in that moment, if you're that crazy, you're insane. Please don't text. Please don't pick up the phone. Don't write an email. I know it feels to you right now like, no, they really need to hear how I feel in this moment, because if anything I need to do is I need to communicate my truth, whatever, right? You're not centered, you're in your craziness. What do? Pray. Dear God, I know that I'm insane right now. And I know that my brother is an innocent child of God, but I do not feel that way. Actually, you would be more hysterical while you're talking to God in that moment. And you ask for help, because you cannot fill the gap yourself. It's too much. And that's why in the New Testament, Jesus says, I stand in the breach. And that's why in the Course in Miracles, he says, my mind joined with your mind will shine away the ego. So you are as far as you could get given your childhood experience. And people are brought into our lives on divine assignment. So people will actually be brought into your life that bring into your awareness your wall. I can be Christ-like to here, I can be enlightened-like to here, I can be self-actualized to here, but that just went too far, right? And you usually can get a lot of social support for perceiving the guilt in your brother. That's one of the worst ways that temptation comes, is all the people who will say things like, you have every right to be angry. Well, of course you have a right to be whatever you want to be. But once you know how a mind operates, you realize you have a right to be angry, but where is it going to get you? Given the fact that there is only one of us here, given the fact that there is only one of us here, the Course in Miracles says when you are having or about to have an attack thought towards your brother, which means anyone, the Course in Miracles doesn't talk about brothers and sisters, because even that would indicate a separation between us. So the Course in Miracles says, imagine a sword falling on their head, but know that it's not falling on theirs, it's falling on yours. So once you know that, you realize, yeah, I have a right to be angry, I have a right to any feeling I want to have. But where's this going to get me? And once you know that, and once you know that the ego, even though in that moment, remember, the ego is your self-hatred, but it poses as your friend. It poses as self-care. The ego doesn't say, hi, I'm going to make sure you blow this one. The ego doesn't say, hi, I'm your self-hatred. The ego says, no, you need to tell him right now. You need to say it right now. Right? You need to do the very thing that later you realize, what was I thinking? What was I thinking exactly? You were not in your right mind. Prayer and prayerfulness have to do with, well, there are two aspects of it that I want to talk about. First of all, the issue of, in that moment, having the presence of mind to say, God, please help me. Because I am off and running. I am in a really neurotic state right now. How do I know? All you need to know is you're not at peace. It's called hell. I'm in hell. When you say, and we've all been there like, this is hell. Yeah, that is what hell is. It's not after we die, it's that experience that the ego mind and all that attack and separation has taken us to. But your chances of being able to do that are greatly increased if you prayed in the morning. The Course in Miracles, one of the powerful prayers in the Course is to say every day, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to whom? Now, usually when we think about the plans of our lives and all the things we're going to do, we'll say things like, I'll make my plans, and then I love how doctors do this all the time, all we can do is pray now. Like, let's ask the all-powerful, mighty force of the universe to take it from here after we've done everything. I mean, it's insane. So the ego would say, if you're going to pray, make your plans first and then pray. So what we want to talk about is the idea, no, pray first and then make your plans. What does that mean? So you wake up in the morning. We talk about this often because, you know, you're not going to hear anything new. You know, once you've read enough books on these kinds of topics and listened to enough tapes, which most of us have, it's not that you're going to hear something new, whether it's me or anyone else talking about these things. At this point, it's about accessing more deeply these principles, which by now most of us kind of intellectually know. But enlightenment begins as abstract concept that then makes the journey from the head to the heart. It's just like physical exercise. You can have it all together. Your muscles can be well trained, but if you stop going to the gym or stop doing yoga or stop lifting weights, the muscles will get weak again. And that's why we have to continue to pray, we continue to meditate, because we are training our attitudinal muscles. We're training our emotional musculature, our psychological musculature. So when you wake up in the morning and you say, I give this day to God. And what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of if you don't do that? You're afraid of what will happen if I put this day in my own hands. Because we will be tempted. So you say, I am only on this earth to be an extension and ambassador of God's love. Now the ego says, and you see it a lot these days, that somehow the power of universal principle is to get you what you want. That if I can make God my errand boy, and I can use the power of intention and affirmation and get the apartment I want and the job I want and the love I want and all that, which to some extent you can manifest. But that in the Course in Miracles is called magic. It's not that it's bad, but it's nowhere near the spiritual mountaintop. The spiritual mountaintop is you give your life to be used by love. You say, God, use me. Where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? What would you have, and to whom? That my life, which means my mind, because your life is an expression of your mind, that it be used by you. Now, every embryo is programmed to become the baby, and the bud is programmed to become the blossom, and the acorn is programmed to become the oak tree. You are programmed. So in surrendering your life to God, you are surrendering it to the natural intelligence of the universe, the guidance of the Holy Spirit, whatever words you want to use. But if you do not proactively give a situation to God, where's the energy going to go? You only have two choices. The mind, there are only two emotions, the Course in Miracles says, love and fear. So if I do not proactively place a situation in the hands of God, the ego takes it from there. That makes sense? So you do this for your own sake. You know, this energy has been cultivated mainly by one of the great religions of the world, which is kind of, do I want to serve God? Or do I want to be happy? Well, that right there is completely upside down, because once you realize that God is love, the natural intelligence of the universe, whose programming is to lift all things to the highest level of creative manifestation and joy, you realize the only way to be happy is to serve God. That's the only way to be happy. It's like when Bob Dylan said, you're going to have to serve somebody. It might be the devil, it might be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody, right? So you are going to serve. You are going to lean. You are going to lean in. You know, some people say, well, I don't want a crutch. Well, you're going to be leaning on something. You are either going to be leaning into the thoughts of love, like the flower leads into the sun, or you were going to be lured. And it's not an accident that in Christianity they talk about the silver-tongued devil. Not an accident that in AA they talk about addiction as insidious and cunning. Right? The ego is your own intelligence used against you. So if I do not call on the higher intelligence of love in any situation, then the lower intelligence, which is actually non-intelligence of fear that dominates this planet, will tempt me to think the thoughts that are the opposite of love, that will lead me to the thinking, to the behavior, to the energy, that will have an effect on other people, that will infuse my consciousness and thus my behavior, and life will not go so well. So let's take a moment and look at the Lord's Prayer and the metaphysics of the Lord's Prayer. I was about to say the Shema. Our Father who art in heaven. So let's start with that. Our Father who art in heaven. Heaven, the Course in Miracles says, is not a condition or a place. It is an awareness of our oneness. So Father, there's Father, Son, cause, effect. It's all the same. Thought to the extension of that thought. God, the Course in Miracles says, is a thought. We are an extension of that thought. God is a cause. We are an effect. Father, Son, whatever language you want to use. Our Father, which means our cause, these days everybody says source. I love how everybody, just so hard to say the word God, so they say source these days. Whatever. I've been around so long, every season there's different jargon, but right now it's source. That's fine. Cool. It is source. So, our Father who art in heaven. Well, that's interesting. Where is God? God is in the awareness of our oneness. The Course in Miracles says, heaven is entered 2 by 2. So if I'm seeing you as separate from me, right, if it's an awareness of my oneness as heaven, then the false awareness, or at least the false belief that I'm separate from you, I cannot be at peace. I cannot be in heaven. Are you with me? I can't be judging someone else, withholding love from someone else, scolding someone else, blaming someone else, attacking someone else, not even trying to forgive someone else, and find peace. I don't care how many pills they give me. Right? So, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Hallowed is a powerful word. You know, I remember once I went, I'd gone when I was a child, but they've made it much different now. How many of you have seen the Pompeii exhibit? Have you seen the Pompeii exhibit as it is now? So for those of you who don't know, really nobody's seen that, the Pompeii exhibit exists now? Okay. So, because it's been around for several years and it travels, I'm sure it comes in and out of New York. So in Pompeii, as we know, very, 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 very long time ago, many hundreds of years ago, the earthquake that erupted, not the earthquake, the volcano that erupted in Pompeii. And everybody had left, and then people were coming back, and it erupted a second time. And so for a very long time, because of the ashes, all of these buildings had been saved in all of these mosaics. So for many years, everybody's been going to exhibits, the Pompeii exhibit, because the Pompeii exhibit has these magnificent architectural ruins and so forth from this ancient village of Pompeii in Italy, which was very well-to-do, artistic, etc. What they have been able to do in the last few years is that many of the bodies themselves, because of the ash coming down, they are essentially body casts. And it's very profound, because you actually see, it's like seeing people in the moment that the volcano is raining down this ash upon them, and it's the moment basically of their death. So you'll see a woman with a scarf, and she's trying to breathe, and she's holding her child close. Or you'll see, it was very interesting, it was just, one of the things that's so striking about these situations is you really see these people might have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, but they were just people like us. You'll see the people who just kind of sit down and surrender, and you see the people who are fighting it. And I remember the first time I saw this exhibit, it was at the Art Museum in Houston. And it's not like going into an art exhibit, because you're seeing people, it's like being like in a cemetery, but even more so, because you're around, you have the respect that you naturally go to for the dead and the dying. I remember when I first started doing weddings and funerals many years ago, and people would ask if they could bring their little children, and what I learned very early was that little children have a natural sense of appropriateness around very, very serious situations. We don't have enough of that in our culture these days. Not enough is hallowed. Not enough is hallowed. And so we are stuck in this consciousness of such easy superficiality and such easy distraction, where nothing is holy, nothing is hallowed. And so you don't do your best thinking. This is what prayer is about. You're not doing your best thinking. When you think of the biggest mistakes you made in your life, you weren't doing your best thinking. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. That you even say the word God. The Course in Miracles, as a matter of fact, says that the word Jesus, spoken in any language, automatically reminds the mind. I love the way the word reminds becomes so much deeper, to be reminded. That saying the word Jesus in any language automatically reminds the mind of our relationship between the Father and the Son. The relationship is oneness. We, the Course says, are ideas in the mind of God. The ego is the false belief that we are separate from that. So in that hallowed space, we know. We've all had those hallowed spaces when you've been in love with someone, when you've held your baby in their arms. We have some civic experiences. One of the things you see in our national life that's so sad is we get hallowed together when tragedy happens. New Yorkers certainly, and the whole country, but New Yorkers really held the space for that hallowed space after 9/11. But one of the reasons we have so many tragedies is because we don't go into enough circumstances of a hallowed space before the tragedies. Are you with me? So that hallowed space, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Now let's unpack that. Thy kingdom come. There are two kingdoms, and they are both mental. One is a kingdom of basically thoughts that work, you know, it's loving, it's merciful, it's compassionate, it's generous. I love you, you're my friend, we'll get through this no matter what, even if something happens between us, we can talk about it nonviolently. It's a universe that works. It's God's kingdom. And then there's God's kingdom, then there's a kingdom that is not God's kingdom. And that is the kingdom where love is not the primary operational force. And that is a kingdom of chaos. It is the dark kingdom. It is the kingdom of chaos. It is the kingdom of fear. It is the kingdom of randomness. It is the kingdom of despair and pain and war and suffering. So there are these two kingdoms. So the ego mind says that the realm of randomness is the real world, and you need the ego to help you navigate it, when in fact the ego is the belief in that kingdom. And every thought that it feeds us is the thought that will actually maintain that kingdom. And it says that the other is just a myth or a fantasy. What we're taught spiritually is that the kingdom of love is the only real kingdom. The other is an illusion. But the Course says illusions are as powerful in their effects as is the truth. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Now that's the point. Will is thought. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So you're in a situation and you're fighting with someone, or somebody is mad at you, or you're mad at them, or everything's crazy, or you don't have enough money, or you're losing your job, or somebody could be dying, or whatever, and you're in hell. Thy kingdom come, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You just go right into the place. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, here in these circumstances, as it already is in heaven. Because heaven is an awareness of oneness, but I'm not feeling that right now because I am living as a human being, and I'm filtering all my experience through the ego mind. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Your thought, thy will be done. Not my own, which means not like sacrifice, like thy will be done, not my own. You know, once again, the ego has told us this is a life of sacrifice. It's the opposite of the life of sacrifice. Ego mind is the mind of sacrifice. Thy will be done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done means the way I'm looking at this, I'm in hell. This is not working. It's like in AA when you realize your way's not working. The Course in Miracles says salvation begins when you consider the possibility there might be another way. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth, here in my circumstances, as it is in heaven. Leave us not. And I don't know where people got this, lead us not into temptation. The Spirit of God does not lead us into temptation. It is the ego mind which is constantly luring us into temptation. The ego mind that is saying, excuse me, Marianne, did you not hear what she just said? Did you not notice the tone of voice? It is the ego which is always leading us, luring us, tempting us. Leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. Deliver us from evil. Why? Because leave us not into temptation. The temptation is to perceive without love. We don't believe in a devil out there. There is no out there. There's no devil out there seeking your soul. What there is, not that this is better news, is something inside your mind. And it's in all of us until we're enlightened masters that is constantly tempting us to perceive without love. Leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil, because evil is the ultimate result of loveless thought. I mean, what do you call some of what's happening in the world today? What do you call murder and violence and all of that stuff? There's evil, which is the ultimate manifestation, taken all the way. The Course in Miracles says the ego is suspicious at best and vicious at worst. Its goal, the ego's goal is not to inconvenience you. The ego's goal is to kill you. I mean, that's why we talk often about the whole issue of addiction, because I think that this community really gets it when it comes to drug addiction and alcohol addiction, that this is no joke. You don't get on top of this, you don't get sober, this could kill you. And I think that the higher consciousness community needs to get that that's true of the ego in general. There are all kinds of things on this planet where if we do not stop the insane collective thought and behavior, it will kill us. That is the ego's goal. It's not just here to inconvenience. It is that as powerful as love is, and the mind of the Spirit in the direction of lifting everything up, that is how vigilant, they're both vigilant. They're vigilant in the direction of fear. One of the things we've talked about with terrorism and so forth, hatred is always looking for recruits. And love needs to be looking for recruits. But you don't look for a recruit by trying to get somebody to be loving. You recruit someone by loving them. Love is a method of conversion. It's a demonstration. It's not come over here and read this book. Does that make sense? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the king. Oh, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We say it all the time. The Course in Miracles says love occurs naturally as miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. Love is God. So the universe is both it is constantly unfolding in a miraculous, loving way. The Course in Miracles says miracles are natural. When they do not occur, something has gone wrong. When you're in love, and we all know this, when you're in a state of love about your work, about your body, about your friendships or whatever, one good thing's going to lead to another good thing. It's going to lead to another good thing. It's going to lead to another good thing. It's going to lead to another good thing. That's the way it unfolds. That's the way it's supposed to unfold, right? But it is also, the universe is self-correcting, so that once I recognize, this is why the Catholics go to confession, why the Jews have the day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, why in AA you have to be brutally honest and admit your character defects and admit where you've been wrong and admit it to other people and seek to make amends. Because if I have not been loving, cause and effect means there's going to be an effect of my lovelessness. But if I atone for my lovelessness and am willing to change and am willing to make amends, then it's like a cosmic reset button. And that is what forgiveness is. You know, sometimes people will say, you feel bad because you know you did something wrong. You were unkind to someone. You were lacking in integrity. You were lacking in honesty, whatever. And sometimes people say, don't feel bad. When in fact you should want to feel bad. Because only a sociopath feels no remorse. The fact that people can do such awful things and not feel bad about it is not a good sign. but we are not left to just be in constant hell of self-condemnation. The Course in Miracles says discomfort is temporarily aroused, but then you don't stay in the guilt, you seek atonement, and that's the metaphysical meaning of forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Because unless I am willing to atone for my errors and forgive you for yours, then we're going to stay stuck. We're going to stay stuck in this constant, what Buddha called the wheel of suffering, the attack and the defense and the attack and the defense. The Course in Miracles says we get off the wheel of suffering in a prayerful moment that the Course in Miracles calls the holy instant. Now, and then for thine is the kingdom and thine is the power, and you affirm it, that God's is the kingdom. My ego says the kingdom is that he was supposed to be here by 8 and he didn't come. That's not the kingdom. That's the dark kingdom. God, thine is the kingdom. And my ego says, and the power is the fact that I don't have enough money. Thine is the kingdom, and thine is the power, and thine is the glory. This is the same as when God told Moses to pick up the snake and it becomes a rod. This is your power. This is the Merlin's wand. The disciplined thought. The Course in Miracles says we achieve so little because you have an undisciplined thinking. That you affirm that thine is the kingdom, and thine is the power, and thine is the glory. This is not an entreaty to God. The Course in Miracles says the highest level of prayer is not an entreaty. It's adjoining your mind with God. Now, if I am starting a project, let's say, and first of all, you pray, should you even be doing it? And the Course in Miracles says, beware the temptation to self-initiated plans. That's a big one. Because sometimes you might think it's such a good idea, but you know what? Is that the one Spirit is asking you to perform? Because it might be a good idea, but that doesn't mean it's yours to do it. That might be somebody else's assignment. So we pray to even ask, dear God, I think I'm supposed to do this. I feel I'm supposed to write this script. I feel I'm supposed to start this business. I feel I'm supposed to go to Chicago. I feel I'm supposed to whatever. Please guide me. This is prayer. You ask in prayer for guidance, because what you're saying is that I know my mind is going to bring in all these different factors that are not of the kingdom. So I want guidance, because the Course in Miracles says the Holy Spirit is the part of the mind of God that enters into the illusion with us. It like stands on the fence. It sees you in your cosmic state where it's all love, because that's the only reality. It also sees this illusion and this craziness, and it is authorized by God. Whether you call it the Holy Spirit, you call it Jesus, you call it whatever. Course in Miracles would call it those things, the internal teacher. And you ask, you pray, you say, may my mind be guided. And so today, I want my mind to be guided by that, because I don't know with my mortal mind what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know where I'm supposed to be. I don't know where my part fits into the bigger plan. And so you pray, you put something on the altar. The altar is in your mind. And so that which you put on the altar is altered, because if I put something on the altar, it means alter my thinking so that it's not insane. Alter my thinking so I'm not coming from lack of self-confidence. Alter my thinking so I'm not coming from fear. Alter my thinking so that I'm not falling into my neurotic patterns. May I be lifted up. And that's what the prayer is. That's what the hallowed. That's why in the architecture in a church or in a mosque or in a synagogue, you see it's all pointing up to those higher realms of consciousness. So when you pray, you say, dear God, what, you begin by even, am I supposed to do this? Where am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to be with this person? Am I supposed to be living here? The Course in Miracles says we are to make no decisions for ourselves, that you ask about everything. And you know, doing the Course in Miracles makes you a finely tuned intuitional instrument. You know, how many times, we've all been there, you have made a mistake. You made a wrong call. Later, you really regret what you did. And how many of us have had that experience of going, I knew it. I knew it. You did know it. You had the hunch. But you didn't have a construct for why that's what you should be listening to. Now, sometimes people will say, well, how do I know which is the voice for God and which is the voice of my ego? Well, it's not like one, you know, sounds like Rod Stewart and one sounds like Barbara Streisand. It's not like that. They both sound like you. One when you're peaceful and one when you're somewhat hysterical and fearful. The Course in Miracles says peace, the state of peace, is how you know. Now, then you not only pray to ask what you should do, where you should go, because you're no longer thinking that life is about you deciding what you want. Because when you're just deciding what you want, it's based on your perception of the past, and to the ego, the past was never good enough, so your core belief is that things aren't good enough. But they will be good enough if I get that house. They will be good enough if I make this deal. They will be good enough if the relationship goes this way. So you're tempted to enter every moment trying to get God to help you make the things you think you need to have happen in order for you to be happy. But your core belief really is that you don't have enough already, so no matter what you do, you're going to recreate circumstances that make you feel it's not enough. So when you instead say, God, take it from here. And in the Course in Miracles, that's what the workbook is. That's what those workbook lessons are, that we every single day are given a sentence. It's like in TM when there's a mantra every single day. This is what prayer and meditation do. You every single day foster this consciousness. Now, this is where a lot of us get mixed up, because I know I certainly have. You're very prayerful about whether or not to do it. But once it starts happening, it's kind of like, I'll take it from here. Why? Because you asked God, and so he made it this big, successful, amazing thing. And now you're busy, right? You're busy, and you got what you wanted in the material world, and that has only fostered you sort of forget who brought you here, right? And so you were very prayerful till it happened, and then you sort of, like I remember a woman said to me many years ago, I'll give it to God up to 250,000. Right? And I thought that was so funny, but I understood what she was saying. She was saying, once it gets big in the world, I think I better take it from here. Rather than realizing that that is exactly what the illusion is, that it's when you're involved already in the material manifestation of the world that we want to be very, very prayerful. So if I make the prayer, you don't make your plans and then pray, you pray and then make your plans. So, sometimes, I see it on Facebook all the time. I was talking at a meeting the other day, and I said something like, well, we just have to pray about it. We'll know what to do because we'll just pray about it. And then somebody felt the need to say, but then we need to plan. And I said, I've written a few books, so I kind of know what writing an outline is. It's like, I'm not somebody who doesn't get that you have to make plane reservations. I'm not someone who doesn't understand material manifestations and things have to happen. But you always get this. When people talk about the things they're going to do on the planet, you don't hear a lot of people saying, well, you have to pray too. But when you start talking about prayer, sometimes people think that means you have a little lower IQ and you need to be reminded. You need to be reminded we need to do I see this in politics as well. We'll talk about meditating. We really need to meditate. We really need to pray. And somebody says, well, you have to be politically active too. Like, once again, I knew that one. So it's not like that means then we won't do anything. But we know that you pray and you meditate first, and this puts you in the consciousness where, number one, you will know what to do, which is a big thing. And number two, you will be able to do it. Because everything we do is infused with the consciousness with which we do it. So theoretically, you could even somehow land on the quote-unquote right action, but if it's not coming from the space of consciousness which is prayerful, which is meditative, which is aligned with the spirit, then no matter what you do, you're going to get off track. Because the ego is vigilant. The ego is vigilant just as the spirit is vigilant. And this is also what it means in the Bible, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you. Now, that's really big. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all else will be added unto you. We've talked here tonight a lot already about what is the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is the confluence of thought. That's what the kingdom is. There's the light kingdom and the dark kingdom. The light kingdom is, I love you, you love me, everything's cool, I want to go to lunch. What's the dark kingdom? I can't stand that you said that. I don't like that you said that either. And it really upset me that you did that, and blah, 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 and all the things that occur from that. One leads to peace on earth, and one leads to hell on earth. And we have both. If ever there was a time when the gap between how beautiful the world can be and how horrifying it can be, and can be even further if left in the hands of people whose recklessness is off the charts, it's right now. This is not symbolic stuff. This is not metaphoric stuff. This is real stuff. Insane people do crazy things. Insane people act insanely. Damaged people damage people. So when we talk about this, the kingdom of heaven, this is not, just up there in higher regions of consciousness. That's what the prayer is, on earth as it is in heaven. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, all else will be added unto you. That means if there's someone you're not loving, if there's someone you're not forgiving, how many of us, and this is, I hope that when we're talking here, that you really use this opportunity, not just to hear these principles, but to apply these principles and think about your own life. You could have the perfect resume. You could have the perfect job. You could have the perfect amount of money. But if you pissed off the wrong person, you could blow everything. If your attitude is just a certain way and it makes people like, I'm just not feeling it, you could completely sabotage your opportunity. The ego mind says as long as you have the externals together, that's what you need to make your dreams come true. What you need to make your dreams come true is the money. You need the investor. You need the resume. You need whatever. That's what the ego says. And so you're always out to make it happen. What the Course in Miracles, and what certainly seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, all else will be added unto you in the Bible, is saying, no, put your consciousness in divine right order. And you know what that's going to mean above everything else? People are going to like you more. I don't care how good your resume is. There's somebody out there whose resume is as good as yours. It happens all the time. You have a resume that's better than everybody else who applied for the job. But after the applicants see the committee making the choice, somebody on the committee says, I don't know, I just have a feeling about that one. There's something, there was the energy, they felt the generative quality of the person's mind, that they were there to be a team player, they felt the goodness, and then if somebody is just a little bit on the make, really, that you could tell too much, I don't think will be a team player, she's too much there for herself, they're going to feel that. So everybody subconsciously knows everything. So this idea of seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all else will be added unto you is not some goody-goody thing. It's the ultimate in self-care. So if I have not forgiven someone, you might think, if I'm working on some professional issue over here, how does my not forgiving someone over there have to do with this? But there's complete bleed through, because everything you do is coming from the one pool of your consciousness. So anyone in your life that you have not forgiven, anyone in your life that you're not working on, at least, the willingness. Forgiveness is a process. But our discipline is to at least be willing. It's like in relationships, They hurt me, they hurt me, they hurt me, they hurt me. And then after a few weeks, a few months, it comes across, well, I guess maybe I had a little something to do with it. Right? And you start to own your own stuff and do your own work. Now you might say, how does my doing that work have anything to do with what's going to happen in my job or my job interview or seeking to get investors or whatever it is? Everything. Because when your mind is aligned with love, the universe, the miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. So when our mind is in a place of, I'm only here to be God's representative. One of the exercises, one of the lessons, when you actually read the course, when you actually read the workbook, there's this part where it says, I am only here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to know what to say. I do not have to know what to do, for him who sent me will guide my way. So it's a much lighter kind of living. You don't go into a meeting like, these days, what's our intention for the meeting? It sounds cool, it's very uncool. Because if my intention is to have a certain something happen at the meeting, then what it means is that I'm programming my subconscious mind to say or do whatever it takes to manipulate you to give me what I want. That's not only not spiritual, it's completely corruption of a civilization, which is what's happening in our civilization. It's all transactional rather than relational. But if you are instead, I'm just here to love, not that you would mention this to people, necessarily, but that's the space that you're seeking to hold. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. What does it make you? It makes you far more present. You really hear people. Because there's nothing for me to do in this instant except to listen to you, see you. And this opens a space of possibility. It opens a space, regardless of what the assignment is, whether we're just supposed to meet today and never meet again, or we're supposed to spend a lifetime together. If I enter into this moment from a prayerful place, and that's why before you go someplace, we talk about this all the time. Before you go to a meeting, before you go to work, before you go to work in the morning, pray for the happiness. First of all, wake up in the morning and go, dear God, may all sentient beings find happiness today. May the world, may all living things be happy. And may I be used as a vessel through which you operate. Now, once again, your mind is going to go one place or the other. If you wake up and that's your discipline, dear God, use me. If you don't, what's it going to be? Your mind is going to go into, oh my God, what's going to happen today? What does so-and-so think about me? Oh my God, I'm so stressed about such and such. You turn on the light because in the presence of light, darkness cannot be. You see what I'm saying? So that's what you just wake up and you go, I'm about my Father's business today. That's what Jesus said to Mary when she was looking for him. I'm about my Father's business. Today, you do this not to be a goody-goody or to live a life of sacrifice. It is the ultimate empowering life. And you say, may I just be used today. Now, once again, the Holy Spirit doesn't destroy your brain cells. That doesn't mean if you do what I'm just saying that you won't know that you have a meeting at 8:45. It doesn't mean that you won't make the plane reservations. Doesn't mean that you won't do all the things you have to do. But the consciousness of fear and lovelessness is very constricting. And it is that constriction that causes the stress. We're used to saying, I'm so stressed because I have 10 things I have to do today. I'm so stressed because I have 10 things I have to do today and I don't have the time in which to do it. Actually, that's not where the stress comes from. The Course in Miracles says that when we live within the body, knowing that the body's just a suit of clothes, it's just your cosmic headquarters, that you dwell lightly within the body. If you identify with the body, and remember, over-identifying with the body means you think you are a body. This is a constricted thought because it's, I just think I'm here, rather than realizing I'm everywhere. And that attitudinal construct is what's constricting. And then time and space are just reflecting my constricted mindset. It's like the time I've told about the time I went, a therapist I went to many years ago, and I was upset about a book deadline. And at the end of the session, after I told her, the whole session had been about my stress over the book deadline, and what she said to me was so profound, it hit me like a brick to the forehead. This is what she said. She didn't say, I hope you get it done in time. She said, I hope that time expands for you this week. Because the deeper your thought, you see this with meditation, you see this with prayerfulness. Time literally expands. Time is part of the illusion. So we think we're stressed because we have so much to do and too little time. But really, it's the opposite. We have too little time and so much to do, or what seems like so much to do, because we are living with the stress of thinking that we have to hold it all together. Is God asking you to keep the planets revolving around the sun? Is God asking you to make sure that your heart beats today or that your lungs breathe today? Is God asking you to make the flowers grow? The message of the Course is that you can either allow the same force which keeps planets around the sun, revolving around the sun, and makes the heart beat and the lungs breathe. You can allow that force. It's the same intelligence. It's the same natural intelligence. You can allow that same natural intelligence to run your life, or you can do what the ego says, which is you'll do it yourself. And that's the stress. Of course, because you feel you're holding, I have to hold it all together. No, you don't actually. That's we all say, I have to hold it all together. That's what causes sickness. The Course in Miracles says that is what puts stress on the body that the body was not meant to carry, and that is the source of sickness. To hold it lighter does not mean, and some people think, oh, well, you'll just let go and you'll just pray about it, and then everything will fall apart. Oh my God, everything will fall apart. It's quite the opposite. The Course in Miracles says they're not exactly together now. The Course in Miracles says love restores reason and not the other way. It will mean that you have more physical energy. Praying is the greatest beneficent you can do for yourself physically. to ask that the Spirit of God be upon your body and to use your body for God's purposes. That's what it's like. Your mind was intended to be used as a conduit of God. Your body was intended to be used as a conduit of God. And when your mind or your body are used by the ego for its purposes, it throws you out of alignment with the universe. And that's why, the message of the Course is God's plan works and yours doesn't. So the idea of God's plan working is that you will find yourself in the right place at the right time. And your finding yourself in the right place at the right time will come from the fact that you know that every moment is the right moment. And every place is wherever you happen to be. Sometimes I'll say to people, oh my God, I see it. Oh my God, I know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Oh my God, I see it. I know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and I know exactly who you're supposed to be doing with. And I'll go, really? What? And I'll go, you're supposed to be, okay, I'm getting it. Right here, right now, with me, right? Because wherever you are, that is the moment. You could say, I don't know what you're thinking about me right now, but the ego is very sly. And the ego will always be doing whatever it can to take you away from the Spirit. So for instance, I kind of doubt, somebody might be here like thinking all kinds of judgmental thoughts about me. Most of them I doubt that because you came, so there's a social contract between us. I'm going to do my best, and it's what you're expecting me to try to do, talking about the Course. But this is more common that this is what your ego would be doing now. She's nice. I think she's nice. I think she actually believes this stuff. Right? But you're keeping yourself just a little bit separate. Anything that will keep you from actually embracing, that's how sly the ego is. So when we are prayerful, we are honing our attitudinal muscles. I remember somebody saying to me at one of my lectures many years ago, it was a Saturday morning, I remember this. He said, I was looking at you while you were talking, and you asked me, I think you had a bad night last night. And the way he said it, almost like he had caught me in something. He caught me. If you asked me, I think your night was bad last night. And I said, that's very interesting, that's where your mind went. Your mind could have been, clearly this girl had a bad night last night. I'm going to send her all the good energy I possibly can. Right? It was so interesting. So why did you not take that into... And that is what Spirit does. Spirit it trains us to what am I not giving? Only what you are not giving can be lacking in any situation. So to the extent to which we are prayerful, that we say, only use me, you are directing your subconscious mind. The Holy Spirit works with our subconscious mind, and it's so that in any given moment you are more available to the miracles that are already there. The kingdom is never not there, because the kingdom is the mind of God. And the kingdom is like an undeletable file in the computer, which is your consciousness. The you that is the real you with a capital R that dwells in the kingdom and cannot be separated from the kingdom is in that file. It is an undeletable file. You can't get rid of it. What you can do, and what under the ego's guidance we do all the time, is we fail to choose to open that file. And when you don't open God's file, you're opening ego's file. It's really one or the other. And the Course in Miracles says that it's like you can't kill God, but you can eclipse. And that's where we live. And I think that more and more in our own personal lives and on the planet, the tragedy between what is and what too often happens is so not only poignant, but tragic. It's so painful. And this is in our personal relationships as well. If only I had said something different. If only I had said something different. And I had an experience recently where I saw somebody who was in this room, actually. I wasn't prepared to see that person. I ran away from the stage at the end of the talk because I didn't want to see that person, but I didn't go in there and pray. I was just hoping that person would just not be there. And then I came into the hall, and then when I did see that person, I did not respond as I wish I had responded. And I thought about it, and then for weeks you're like, why I get that I was in fear, but what kept me when I went back there from praying, from saying, God, I think he's here. Oh my God, help me. And that's how insidious this is, because intellectually I know this stuff. And then you realize life goes on. And then you realize all the things. You know, we've all had relationships where you see a person months later or years later, and I'm sorry too. I'm really, you know, I loved you all the time. Yeah, I loved you all the time. But I think there's something about getting older. You know, life, we literally waste time. And the Course in Miracles says you can see you can see all this at the moment of your death, that only love is real. Or you can see it now. You know, when my sister died, I have seen this in some people. My mother didn't have it, my father didn't have it. I was there for both their deaths. But my sister had something which I've seen around other dying people. This just unbelievable Buddha light that was around her the last few days of her life. And she was sitting up in bed, and it was really unbelievable. And my brother was at the end of the bed, and I was sitting at the end in a chair, and I was sitting in a chair next to my sister. And I think Peter was crying. I know I was crying. I think he was crying. You know, we all knew it was the end, basically. This was about 3 or 4 days before she died. And I was overwhelmed by this realization that we had been siblings, but we'd never really done it. We had never really allowed ourselves, like if I had said to my sister was married with 3 kids, my brother was married with 4 kids, if I had said, Jane, why don't you and Peter and I go to dinner tonight? She'd say, why? I don't want to go to dinner with you guys, right? You just never get around to it. You know, everybody goes on that quote unquote hollow ground, you know, when there would be a wedding, when there would be a funeral or whatever. We loved each other, you know, everybody's busy, right? And I realized in these last few hours of her life that we had not fully experienced the expansiveness of what might have been her and him and me as siblings this lifetime. We just hadn't, I got how much we hadn't done. I remember after my sister died, she was a very young woman, she died at 44. But I remember thinking and saying that my greatest pain was not that I hadn't known her longer, but that I hadn't known her better. Just, you kind of don't get around to it, right? And my sister and my brother, I said that, I just started crying. I said, I don't know what my words were, but I just let it, it's like we never got around to it. The deepest parts of it. We did the superficial part of being siblings, but I just got, you know, because at the moment of death and life and death, you get real and you see. And I said to we didn't do it. And my brother like nodded his head because he saw it. And my sister from that amazing Buddha state said, and she was so right and she was so real, it was straight from God, it's all right, because we're doing it right now. So the Course in Miracles says you can see all this at the moment of death, or you can see it now. And the Course in Miracles also says it is not up to you what you learn, it's merely up to you whether you learn through joy or through pain. So we can wait for tragedy to happen, for death. We can wait to get real about life and to get serious about life, and to get responsible with life, and to get prayerful with life, and to make it all about love and all about serving and being there for each other. We can do that later, we can wait, or we can do it now. And if, not only if, when and as, because you wouldn't be here, you know, at a talk like this unless you're already living in the space of this conversation that we're all having and that millions of people on the planet are having. But this is the self-corrective force of the universe. When you've gone off track, if you atone, seek to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We need to atone as individuals, we need to atone as a nation. We have so much we have to atone for. But as we go deep into prayer, dear God, forgive us, show us the way, show us how to make amends, show us how to be better now. Use me on this day, show me how to get it right where I've gotten it wrong, show me how to be a vessel of love. None of us are going to be enlightened masters, on any given day, except one day we will. The Course in Miracles says you are not perfect or you would not be here, but it is your mission to become perfect here. So most everybody I know, certainly myself included, you know, I'm not there yet, but I'm sure as hell better than I used to be. And we're on our way. And the condition of the world today is a reflection of where we are now. And I think all of us would agree we are being called, not just in our own individual lives, but collectively, to step it up. And that, as I travel and as I work, this is my impression of so many people that I meet and that I see in my work. A lot of people are really, we're kind of there's a lot we basically get. But I think it could be said for most of us, and I know for myself, the message right now is step it up. So let us, I think that we're all aware that we could go a little deeper. And when those moments happen that we didn't get it, we can pray now. So you can say, oh, if only I had prayed, my mind would have been aligned with truth. I would have been the person I want to be, say what I would have wanted to say, things would have unfolded a certain way. The atonement prayer is so powerful. You go back to the moment where you made the mistake, and you get that in that moment I did not let the Holy Spirit flow through me, but I can choose again. That's a basic principles of A Course in Miracles. You can choose again. And we all have those places where we get, I wasn't prayerful, I wasn't loving. I've made so many mistakes in my life that I go back and you think, like one mistake, one huge professional mistake I made where I, for years, would say to my best friend, I didn't even pray about it. All I had to say was, could I have a day to think about it? Could I have a day to pray about it? I didn't even go there. Another one, a huge mistake, where I actually heard the answer, but it didn't rationally make sense to me at the time, so I let other people's opinions sway me. So it's not only that you remember to pray, but then you take your guidance very seriously. Sometimes it's not that you didn't hear God's answer, it's that you weren't sure you agreed. Because the Spirit of God is a part of your mind that knows what's going to happen tomorrow and you don't. So our prayer tonight is that we become more prayerful, that we dwell more deeply in hallowed ground, that we stop the recklessness and the irresponsibility primarily towards ourselves, with which too often we have hurt ourselves, we have hurt others, we're disengaged. You know, a lot of the stuff that we talk about politically, we're living in the midst of a storm in this country. Well, it didn't come out of nowhere. Accumulated layers of disengagement. People didn't take seriously. You have a democracy, you have to kind of cultivate it. You have to protect it. You have to show up in life. We have to rise to the occasion. But the atonement means, dear God, I get where I didn't, and I'm so willing now. But mind is powerful, and the ego is very arrogant. And the ego says, oh, it'll be okay. And as I said before, when it comes to drugs and alcohol, we get that. You know, that's stinking thinking, as they say. That's just the addictive mind. That's what the ego is, the addictive mind. We're addicted to fear. And the truth of the matter is, the Course says God himself will not violate the law of cause and effect. If we stay in fear-based thinking, we will get fearful consequences.